The grand hall of the Galactic Alliance hub shimmered with light that bounced off the crystalline walls. Beings from 100 worlds mingled, their voices creating a symphony of different tones and languages. In the center of it all stood Commander Davis, his simple blue uniform standing out among the colorful and often elaborate clothing of the other species. "Another successful cultural exchange," said Admiral Gray, approaching with 2 drinks in hand. Though retired from active military service for 20 years, Gray still carried himself with the straight-backed posture of a soldier. "The Alliance seems impressed with our latest art exhibition." Davis accepted the drink with a nod. "Humans have come a long way in 100 years, from warships to art ships. Who would have thought?" Gray's eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled, but something in his gaze remained alert, watching the room. "Indeed." Across the hall, High Elder Vex of the Star Hunters observed the 2 humans with yellow, slitted eyes. The Star Hunters were tall, muscular beings, with tough gray skin and bony ridges along their foreheads. They had joined the Alliance only 30 years ago, reluctantly agreeing to peace after centuries as feared warriors. "Look at them," Vex said to his aide, a younger Star Hunter named Kor. "Soft, weak. Their hands have forgotten the grip of weapons." Kor nodded, his battle-scarred face showing contempt. "They speak of nothing but art and science. Their warriors now call themselves peacekeepers and cultural liaisons." 100 years ago they were feared, Vex continued, his voice low and rumbling. "Their history is full of war. They fought each other constantly before reaching the stars. Then they fought the Meridian Collective to a standstill. No small feat." "What happened to them?" Kor asked. Vex's mouth curled into what passed for a smile among his kind. "They grew soft, comfortable. They dismantled most of their military after joining the Alliance. Now they build gardens instead of warships. They have forgotten how to fight." In another part of the hall, Ambassador Reed stood before the Alliance Council, a group of elder representatives from the founding worlds. Reed was a tall woman with dark skin and silver hair cropped close to her scalp. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed the council. "The Earth government has received reports of unusual Star Hunter fleet movements near our outer colonies," she said. "We request the Alliance investigate these activities under the Mutual Protection Treaty." The chair being a floating entity encased in a transparent globe of pale blue liquid, made a sound like bubbles rising through water. "Ambassador Reed, the Star Hunters have explained that these are merely training exercises. Without concrete evidence of hostile intent, the Alliance cannot interfere with a member's internal military affairs." Reed's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "These exercises have come dangerously close to our research stations. If the Alliance will not act, Earth may need to take precautionary measures." "What measures?" asked the representative from Proxima Centauri, leaning forward with interest. "Earth has maintained minimal defensive capabilities for decades. Your ships are primarily scientific vessels now." Reed smiled thinly. "We prefer peaceful solutions, but we are not defenseless." Later that evening, Commander Davis walked through the quiet corridors of the Earth Embassy section. The lights were dimmed to simulate night, though in space there was no true day or night. His communication device beeped softly. "Secure channel established," said a computerized voice. "Identity confirmed. Commander Thomas Davis." The screen lit up to show the stern face of General Hall, one of the few remaining military leaders on Earth. "Commander, we have a situation developing. The Star Hunters are mobilizing." Davis stepped into his office and sealed the door. Ambassador Reed warned the Council today, but they dismissed her concerns. "The Council has grown complacent," General Hall said. "They've enjoyed peace for so long they don't recognize the signs of coming war." "What are my orders?" Davis asked. "Access the embassy's secure vault. Authorization code, Leonidas." Davis felt his pulse quicken. That code name was only used for the highest level emergencies. "Understood. What am I looking for?" "Documents related to the Sleeping Giant contingency. It's time to dust them off." 30 minutes later, Davis stood in the embassy's most secure room, a small chamber deep within the structure, shielded against all forms of surveillance. Before him lay a simple metal box, open to reveal paper documents. Actual paper, not digital files that could be hacked or corrupted. The heading on the top page read, "Sleeping Giant Contingency, Protocol for Reactivation of Earth's Defensive Capabilities in Case of Existential Threat." Davis read through the documents with growing amazement. For decades he had believed, like most humans, that Earth had truly embraced peace to the point of near defenselessness. The truth was far different. Earth's apparent shift to arts and sciences had been genuine, but it had not come at the expense of defensive capability. Instead, military technology had been integrated into civilian infrastructure, disguised as art installations, research facilities, and cultural centers. Weapons systems were hidden within seemingly benign structures. Ships designed for scientific research could transform into battle-ready vessels. And most importantly, military training had never ceased. It had merely been rebranded as emergency response preparation and intensive physical cultural practices. A soft knock at the door made Davis look up. Admiral Gray stood there, his face grave. "You've been briefed," Gray said. "It wasn't a question." "You knew about this," Davis replied, holding up the documents. "All this time while playing the role of cultural liaison." Gray nodded. "Some of us needed to remember the old ways just in case. I was never truly retired. I've been watching, especially the Star Hunters. They've never really accepted the peace." "Why keep this secret from our own people?" Davis asked. "Because peace had to be genuine to work," Gray explained. "Humans embraced art and science wholeheartedly. That wasn't a lie. But some of us remembered history too well to believe it would last forever." Davis's communication device beeped again. A message appeared. "Star Hunter vessels have entered Earth, colony space. 3 research outposts have gone silent." Gray's expression hardened. "It's beginning." "What do we do now?" Davis asked. "Now," Gray said, "we show them what they've forgotten about humans." He touched his own communicator. "Send the message. Authentication Gray Alpha 7. Message reads, activation code, remember Thermopylae." Davis looked puzzled. "Thermopylae? An ancient battle," Gray explained, his eyes distant, "where a small force held back an overwhelming enemy through skill and determination." He looked directly at Davis. "The Star Hunters think we've forgotten how to fight. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Outside the window of the embassy, the stars shone coldly in the blackness of space, unaware of the storm that was about to break across the galaxy. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the ERS Galileo, a vessel classified as a deep space research ship. It was the only human ship within range of Colony Delta, one of Earth's newer settlements. The colony was home to 3,000 people, mostly scientists and their families. Miller was a short man with weathered skin and quick eyes. His uniform bore the patches of Earth's science fleet, showing a telescope and stars rather than any military insignia. "Captain," called his communications officer, a young woman named Parker. "We're picking up unusual signals, multiple ships entering the system." Miller's face showed no surprise, only grim acceptance. "Time to shed the mask, Parker. Send the alert to the colony. Code Sleeping Giant." Parker looked startled. "Sir, that's a military code. We're a research vessel." Miller gave her a patient look. "Are we? Open Weapons Locker 5 and enter your authorization." Confused, Parker did as ordered. The locker, which supposedly held advanced scanning equipment, slid open to reveal military-grade weapon harnesses. "The Galileo has been a wolf in sheep's clothing for 15 years, Miller explained as the bridge crew stared in shock. "Now the sheep's clothing comes off." He pressed his palm against a hidden scanner beside his command chair. Throughout the ship, panels slid open, revealing weapon stations. The smooth hull of the Galileo began to change as defensive plating extended outward, and hidden weapon ports opened like eyes waking from sleep. "All crew battle stations," Miller ordered. "This is not a drill." On the main view screen, 3 Star Hunter vessels appeared, shaped like jagged arrowheads, their hulls gleaming with a dull metallic sheen. They were warships built for one purpose only. Colony Delta reports 3 more Star Hunter ships on their side, Parker said, her voice steadier now as her training took over. They're asking for orders. Tell them to activate deep shelter protocols, Miller replied, and to remember their training. We'll buy them time. On Ganymede, the largest moon of Jupiter and home to Earth's biggest research installation outside of Earth itself, Dr. Bell received the emergency transmission from Earth Command. She sat alone in her office, staring at the message on her screen. Sleeping Giant Protocol activated. Bell was a tall woman with graying hair and hands that looked like they belonged to someone who worked with machines, not the pristine lab tools of a scientist. She opened a drawer in her desk that had remained locked for the 5 years she had served as director of the station. Inside was a simple metal key. She stood up and walked quickly through the corridors of the research station until she reached a door marked Environmental Systems, authorized personnel only. Using the key, she entered a room filled with humming machinery. At the back wall was a large red panel with the words, Emergency Use Only. Bell placed her hand on a scanner beside the panel. Authorization, Bell, Eleanor. Activation phrase, the sword is mightier when sheathed until needed. The panel slid aside to reveal a large chamber beyond. Inside were rows of what looked like sleek mechanical suits standing in storage racks, along with weapons that no peaceful research station should possess. Bell picked up a communication device. Attention all Ganymede personnel, this is Director Bell. The Sleeping Giant Protocol has been activated. All section leaders report to your designated areas. This is not a drill. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Research stations revealed hidden armories. Civilian administrators accessed secure protocols. Art installations that decorated space stations and colony worlds began to transform, revealing weapon systems and defensive capabilities. On Earth, in an underground facility beneath what appeared to be nothing more than a public park, General Stone received reports. From across human space, 3 colonies under direct attack, reported his aide. Star Hunter forces have hit New Eden, Delta, and Proxima colonies simultaneously. Stone was an older man with close-cropped white hair and the bearing of someone who had carried heavy responsibility for many years. Casualties? Minimal so far. The early warning systems worked. Most colonists made it to shelters before the attacks began. And our response capabilities? The aide displayed a holographic map showing green dots representing human installations. One by one, many of the dots changed from green to blue. Reactivation at 83% and climbing. Sleeping Giant Protocol proceeding faster than projected. Stone allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. Let's hope we've remembered everything we pretended to forget. In space near Colony Delta, Captain Miller's research vessel faced 3 Star Hunter warships that outsized it significantly. The enemy ships surrounded the Galileo in a triangle formation designed to trap it. They're hailing us, Parker reported. Put them through, Miller ordered. The screen lit up to show the face of War Chief Dax of the Star Hunters. His gray, ridged face showed smug confidence. Human vessel, Dax said. Your colony is now under Star Hunter control. Power down your engines, and prepare to be boarded. Miller straightened in his chair. This is Captain James Miller of the Earth research ship Galileo. We are a peaceful vessel on a scientific mission. Why have you entered Earth space with warships? Dax made a sound that might have been laughter. Your peaceful ways have made you weak, human. The Star Hunter Empire expands once more, beginning with your vulnerable colonies. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Miller shook his head. You've made a serious mistake, War Chief. Have I? Dax sneered. 1 small research ship against 3 battle cruisers. What mistake could I possibly have made? Miller smiled for the first time. You believed our cover story. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Battle stations, weapons hot. Show them what a research vessel can do. The Galileo's hidden weapon systems came fully online. What had appeared to be sensor arrays reconfigured into pulse cannons. The ship's engines, designed to look like standard civilian drives, revealed their true power as they flared with energy far beyond what a research vessel should possess. Target their weapon systems, Miller ordered. Disable, don't destroy if possible. The first shots from the Galileo struck with surprising precision, catching the Star Hunter vessels off guard. Their shields flared as they absorbed energy they hadn't expected to face. Back on Earth, General Stone received another report. Sir, we're getting distress calls from all 3 attacked colonies. The Star Hunters didn't expect resistance. Our hidden defenses are holding for now, but they won't last without reinforcement. Stone nodded. Send in the reserve fleet. His aide looked uncomfortable. Sir, according to official records, we don't have a reserve fleet. Stone smiled thinly. Exactly according to plan. Transmit these coordinates to all command staff. He handed over a data chip. The fleet is there, hidden in plain sight for over 20 years. In orbit around Saturn, disguised as an orbital art installation and research platform, Earth's hidden fleet waited. 50 ships of various sizes, all officially listed as either decommissioned, destroyed in training accidents, or never built in the first place. Admiral Gray, having left the Alliance hub via emergency transport, stepped onto the bridge of the flagship, a vessel called Remembrance. Status report, he ordered. All ships powered up and ready, Admiral, replied the officer on duty. Crews at battle stations, weapons and shields at full capacity. Gray took his place in the command chair. Set course for Colony Delta. Maximum speed. The Star Hunters wanted to see if humans remember how to fight. His eyes narrowed. Let's show them that we do. Across human space, the message spread. Sleeping Giant protocol activated. On 1,000 screens, in 1,000 locations, those words appeared. And humans who had lived peaceful lives as scientists, artists, and colonists reached for hidden weapons and remembered their other training, the training they had hoped never to use again. The war had begun. President West stood at the window of her office in the Earth Leadership Center, watching as the formerly peaceful city around her transformed. For a century, this building had been a center for arts, culture, and peaceful governance. Now, hidden, systems hummed to life as the structure revealed its other purpose. West was a short woman with dark hair streaked with silver and eyes that had seen many worlds. She had been elected as a peacetime leader, someone who could guide Earth's cultural and scientific growth. Now she would show the world her other skills. Madam President, said her aide, entering the room quickly, the Alliance Council is requesting an emergency meeting. They're demanding an explanation for the sudden appearance of a human battle fleet. West nodded without turning from the window. Tell them I'll address the full council in 1 hour. And the Star Hunter attacks? Admiral Gray and the fleet are responding. General Stone has activated all defensive measures at the colonies. It's time for Phase 2. She finally turned, her expression resolute. Activate the Earth defense grid. Across the planet, in every major city, structures that had been admired as beautiful examples of human art and architecture began to change. In New York, the towering Peace Spire, built to commemorate Earth's joining of the Galactic Alliance, split along hidden seams to reveal a massive energy cannon aimed at the sky. In Beijing, the famous water gardens drained in seconds as the EIE pools transformed into launch pads for defense craft. In Lagos, the sprawling art complex restructured itself into a command center for Earth's southern hemisphere defenses. At the Alliance hub, Commander Davis now wore a different uniform, no longer the diplomatic blue of Earth's peacekeepers, but the dark gray of Earth Defense Forces, with rank insignia that had not been seen in public for decades. This is an outrage, shouted the Star Hunter representative in the emergency council session. Humans have deceived the Alliance. They claim to have dismantled their military. Davis stood calmly before the angry council. We never claimed that. We said we embraced peace and reduced our military presence. Both statements were true. The chair being's containment sphere bubbled furiously. You maintained hidden military capabilities. You violated the spirit of Alliance transparency. Did we? Davis asked. The Alliance Charter guarantees each member the right to self-defense. It does not require members to publicly disclose all defensive measures. Your ships are attacking Star Hunter vessels, the Star Hunter representative snarled. Your ships invaded Earth colonies and fired first, Davis replied evenly. Our vessels are defending human lives. We have the sensor logs to prove it. In deep space, the battle near Colony Delta had taken an unexpected turn. Captain Miller's research vessel had not only survived the initial confrontation with 3 Star Hunter warships, but had managed to disable the weapons on one of them. War Chief Dax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How is this possible? Their ship is half our size." "Sir," reported his weapons officer, "their targeting systems are far more precise than our intelligence suggested. They're hitting exactly the same spot on our shields repeatedly, creating weakness points." "Bring the secondary cannons online," Dax ordered. "Surround and destroy them." As the Star Hunter ships adjusted their formation, a new alert sounded. "Multiple ships entering the system," called the sensor operator, his voice rising in alarm. 50. No, more. They're everywhere." On the main screen, Dax watched as human vessels appeared from multiple directions. Some of them he recognized as ships that had been officially decommissioned years ago. Others were completely unfamiliar. Admiral Gray's voice came over the communication system. "Star Hunter vessels, this is Admiral James Gray of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked Earth colonies without provocation. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will be forced to respond with appropriate measures." Dax snarled. "Where did this fleet come from? Earth has no military fleet." His second-in-command looked shaken. "Sir, these ships, they match nothing in our intelligence files. Their energy signatures are beyond anything we've seen from humans before." On Earth, President West stood before a global broadcast system. Her face appeared on screens across human space, on colonies, research stations, and ships. The message was also being transmitted to the Alliance hub and all member worlds. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Today the Star Hunter Empire launched unprovoked attacks against 3 of our colonies. These attacks have been met with resistance, and I am pleased to report that our defensive measures have held. The attackers have suffered significant losses, and Earth forces are now moving to secure all human settlements." She paused, her expression grave. "For a century, humanity has embraced peace. We have built art, advanced science, and worked in harmony with the Galactic Alliance. This was not a deception. Our commitment to peace was and remains genuine." Images appeared beside her: human colonies, research stations, and the great cultural achievements of the past century. "However," West continued, "we have not forgotten our history. We have not forgotten that peace must sometimes be defended. When we reduced our visible military presence, we did not abandon our ability to protect ourselves. We simply integrated it more deeply into who we are." The images changed to show the transformed structures across Earth and the colonies. Art installations revealing defensive capabilities, research vessels deploying weapons, scientists picking up arms with practiced ease. "For a century, we have maintained peace, cultivated art, and advanced science," President West said, her voice growing stronger. "We have not, however, forgotten war. We hoped never to need these capabilities again. The Star Hunters have forced our hand." At the Alliance hub, representatives from dozens of worlds watched the broadcast in stunned silence. "She's telling the truth," Commander Davis said to the Council. "Earth chose peace, but we prepared for the possibility that others might not. Respect that choice. We didn't hide weapons. We integrated defense into everything we built. We didn't maintain a standing army. We trained all our people to defend themselves if needed." On the Star Hunter homeworld, High Elder Vex received War Chief Dax's urgent transmission. "We've lost contact with the attack fleet at Colony Delta," Dax reported, his image flickering with interference. "The human ships, they're not what we expected. Their weapons technology is far beyond our intelligence reports." "That's impossible," Vex said. "Our spies have monitored their shipyards for decades. They build research vessels and civilian transports, not warships." "The vessels we're facing were disguised," Dax replied. "Some appear to be ships that were supposedly scrapped years ago. Others," he hesitated, "others seem to be entirely new designs we've never seen before." "What about their crews?" Vex demanded. "Humans have been artists and scientists for generations. They cannot have trained warriors to crew these ships. That's just it, Dax said, his voice dropping. Their tactics suggest otherwise. They're not fighting like novices, Elder. They're executing complex battle maneuvers with perfect precision. It's as if... As if what? Vex growled. As if they never stopped training for war at all, Dax finished. The humans weren't pretending to be peaceful. They were practicing restraint. As the battle spread across human space, the Alliance Council remained in emergency session. Reports flooded in from observers, human forces emerging from hiding across a dozen systems, responding with coordinated precision to the Star Hunter attacks. This changes everything, the representative from Proxima Centauri said quietly. For a century, we believed the humans had set aside their warrior past. They did, Commander Davis replied. But they didn't forget it. There's a difference. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Gray watched as the Star Hunter ships began to retreat from Colony Delta. Should we pursue, Admiral? Asked his second-in-command. Gray shook his head. No. We defend, we secure, but we don't conquer. That's the difference between us and them. He turned to the communications officer. Send word to all human forces. The sleeping giant is awake. Operation Shield Wall is now in effect. Across human space, the message spread. The time for hiding was over. The time for defending had begun. 3 days after the initial Star Hunter attacks, Admiral Gray stood on the bridge of the Remembrance, studying the tactical display that showed the positions of both human and Star Hunter forces across the galaxy. The initial surprise of human military readiness had given Earth forces a significant advantage, but the Star Hunters were regrouping. Status report, Gray ordered. His tactical officer, a woman named Reeves, adjusted the display. All human colonies are secure, Admiral. The Star Hunters have pulled back to these positions. She indicated several star systems near the border of Star Hunter space. They appear to be calling in reinforcements from their inner territories. Gray nodded. And our forces? Fully deployed and at combat readiness. The civilian conversion is 98% complete. The civilian conversion was perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Earth's response. Throughout human territory, people who had lived as artists, scientists, and teachers for decades had smoothly transitioned to their secondary roles as trained military personnel. It wasn't that they had been pretending to be civilians. They truly were civilians, but with military training maintained through what had been disguised as cultural practices and sports. Admiral, called the communications officer. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. President West is calling a war council. An hour later, the leaders of Earth's defense gathered via secure holographic link. President West sat at the center, with General Stone, Admiral Gray, and other key commanders arranged around her. The time has come for Phase 3, West said without preamble. The Star Hunters believe they have retreated to safe territory to regroup. They expect us to fortify and defend. They do not expect us to strike. A counteroffensive? Asked General Stone. Into Star Hunter territory? Precisely, West replied. Admiral Gray will lead our main battle fleet in a direct approach to demonstrate our force. Meanwhile, Captain Miller will take a smaller, faster group to infiltrate their command structure. Gray looked thoughtful. The Star Hunters are natural warriors. They will fight fiercely to defend their homeworlds. Which is why we will not target their homeworlds, West said firmly. We don't fight to dominate. We fight to end fighting. Our targets are military installations only, no civilian centers. At the edge of Star Hunter territory, Captain Miller prepared his team for their mission. The Galileo had been joined by 5 other vessels, all similarly disguised as research ships but packed with advanced technology. Your target is here, Miller said, pointing to a location on the star map. The Star Hunter Central Command Station. Our intelligence suggests it coordinates all their military activities. How do we get past their defenses? Asked Lieutenant Reyes, his second-in-command. Miller smiled. The same way we've gotten past them for decades, by not looking like a threat. The plan was as elegant as it was daring. While Admiral Gray's fleet would launch an obvious attack on Star Hunter military outposts, drawing their main forces into battle, Miller's ships would approach the command station under the guise of a neutral scientific expedition from one of the smaller Alliance races. The Star Hunters, focused on the main human fleet, would likely pay little attention to what appeared to be harmless research vessels. "Remember," Miller told his crew, "our goal isn't destruction. It's the deployment of the Pax Protocol." The Pax Protocol was the culmination of a century of human scientific advancement. Turned to a purpose? No, one had expected. Not a weapon of mass destruction, but rather its opposite, a system designed to disable rather than destroy. On the Star Hunter homeworld, High Elder Vex called his war council together. The chamber was filled with the galaxy's most feared warriors, their bodies marked with the scars of countless battles. "The humans have revealed their deception," Vex growled. "They maintained military capability in secret while pretending to embrace peace." War Chief Dax, who had barely escaped the battle at Colony Delta, stood with his head slightly bowed. "Elder, I must correct you. Based on my observations, the humans were not pretending. They truly did embrace arts, science, and peaceful cooperation." "Then explain their military response," Vex demanded. "They did both," Dax said simply. "They became a peaceful species that maintained the ability to defend itself. They integrated defense into every aspect of their society rather than keeping it separate." Another war chief slammed his fist on the table. "Impossible. One cannot be both warrior and poet. The humans have proved otherwise," Dax insisted, "and that makes them more dangerous than we thought. They don't fight with the blind aggression of warriors who know nothing else. They fight with the precision and creativity of scientists who understand exactly what they're doing." As if to punctuate his words, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. "Human fleet detected," called the sensor operator. "Multiple vessels approaching our outer defense perimeter." Vex bared his teeth. "So they think they can bring the fight to us? Deploy the battle fleet. Show them what true warriors can do." "As EC." The Star Hunter fleet moved to intercept Admiral Gray's approaching forces. Engineer Taylor worked deep within the human flagship Remembrance. Taylor was a slender person with quick hands and a mind that could visualize complex systems in an instant. For decades, they had been known as the designer of Earth's most beautiful orbital habitats. Few knew that those same habitats contained some of humanity's most advanced defensive systems. "Status of the Pax Protocol?" Gray asked, speaking through the ship's communication system. "Final calibrations complete," Taylor replied, hands moving over a complex array of controls. "The delivery systems are ready on all ships, but Admiral, we need to be closer to their central communication hub for maximum effectiveness." "That's Captain Miller's job," Gray responded. "Our job is to keep their attention on us." The human and Star Hunter fleets met in the blackness of space near the edge of Star Hunter territory. Energy weapons flashed between ships, shields flared as they absorbed impacts, and smaller craft darted between the larger vessels like insects swarming. To observers from the Alliance, who watched from a safe distance, it was immediately clear that the human ships were fighting differently than the Star Hunters. Where the alien vessels fired with maximum power at any target they could hit, human weapons struck with surgical precision, targeting weapons systems, engines, and sensors, while avoiding areas where crews would be concentrated. "They're not trying to destroy the ships," noted the Proximan observer. "They're trying to disable them." Meanwhile, Captain Miller's small fleet of disguised vessels approached the Star Hunter command station from a different vector. Their transponders identified them as scientific ships from the Tendril Nebula Collective, a minor Alliance member known for its non-interference policies. "We're being hailed," Lieutenant Reyes reported. "Respond with the prepared message," Miller ordered. "Remember, we're neutral scientists concerned about the conflict affecting our research areas." The ruse worked. With their attention focused on Admiral Gray's approaching fleet, the Star Hunter command station gave only cursory attention to the small group of research vessels requesting temporary safe harbor in their space. "We're in position," Miller told his crew once they had been granted permission to maintain orbit around the station. "Prepare the Pax Protocol for deployment." On the bridge of his flagship, War Chief Dax watched the battle with growing concern. The human vessels moved with a coordination he had never seen before, seeming to anticipate his fleet's maneuvers before they executed them. They're hurting us, he realized suddenly, forcing our ships into this specific formation. Sir, called his communications officer, we're picking up an unusual transmission from the command station, some kind of interference. Before Dax could respond, every system on his ship flickered. Throughout the Star Hunter fleet, the same thing happened as the PAX protocol activated. Not destroying their systems, but temporarily reconfiguring them, locking out weapon controls while maintaining life support and basic functions. On the BID command station, Captain Miller's team had successfully deployed the core of the protocol directly into the Star Hunter Central Communication Network. From there, it spread to every connected Star Hunter ship and base. This, Miller said quietly as he watched the Star Hunter ships go still in space, weapons powered down, is how humans fight a war in the 22nd century, not with destruction, but with control. High Elder Vex stared at the reports coming in from across Star Hunter space. In a matter of hours, the entirety of the Star Hunter military had been neutralized, not destroyed, but rendered temporarily harmless. How? He demanded of his advisors. How could they do this? There was no answer. The Star Hunters, who had spent generations perfecting the art of destruction, had never considered the possibility that true power might lie in choosing not to destroy when you had the ability to do so. Admiral Gray opened a channel to all Star Hunter vessels. This is Admiral James Gray of Earth Defense Forces. Your weapons have been temporarily disabled. Your life support and basic systems remain functional. We have no desire to harm your people or occupy your worlds. We seek only an end to hostilities and recognition of human sovereignty. He paused, then added, when we are satisfied that peace has been restored, the effects of our protocol will be reversed. The choice of what happens next is yours. 3 days after the deployment of the PAX protocol, representatives of Earth and the Star Hunter Empire met aboard the Galactic Alliance's neutral diplomatic vessel. The large circular chamber was designed to accommodate beings from all member species, with sections adjusted for different gravity needs and atmospheric requirements. President West entered with a small delegation that included Admiral Gray and Commander Davis. They took their places at one side of the central table. Across from them, High Elder Vex led the Star Hunter representatives, his normally imposing presence somehow diminished by recent events. The chair being of the Alliance Council floated in its containment sphere at the head of the table. This emergency session will now begin. The conflict between Earth and the Star Hunter Empire has caused great concern throughout the Alliance. We are here to negotiate a peaceful resolution. President West spoke first. The terms of Earth are simple. The Star Hunter Empire will withdraw all forces from human territory, recognize the sovereignty of all human settlements, and agree to a non-aggression pact for a minimum of 50 years. In return, we will remove the PAX protocol from all Star Hunter systems and vessels. High Elder Vex's ridged face showed no emotion, but his voice carried a note of barely contained anger. You humiliated the proud warriors of the Star Hunter Empire. You neutralized our forces without even granting us the honor of true combat. We granted you the honor of survival, Admiral Gray replied calmly. We could have destroyed your ships and bases. We chose not to. Why? Vex demanded. If you maintained such military capability, why hide it behind art and science? Why pretend to be peaceful when you could have been feared? President West leaned forward. Because we did not want to be feared. Earth chose peace a century ago, not out of weakness but out of wisdom. We learned from our history that societies built on fear and military might eventually destroy themselves. We wanted something better. Yet you maintained weapons, Vex pointed out. We maintained the ability to defend ourselves, West corrected. There is a difference. We hoped never to need these capabilities. You forced our hand. Commander Davis added, the PAX protocol itself demonstrates our approach. It was designed specifically to disable without destroying. No Star Hunter lives were lost in its deployment. The discussion continued for hours, with representatives from other alliance worlds occasionally interjecting. Many expressed shock or concern about Earth's hidden military capabilities, while others seemed impressed by the restraint humans had shown in victory. Finally, High Elder Vex spoke with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. "I still do not understand. You speak of peace yet prepared for war. You fight without destroying. These concepts are contradictory to Star Hunter thinking." President West smiled slightly. "Perhaps that is why we won. In the end, the Star Hunter Empire accepted Earth's terms. They had little choice. Their military remained neutralized by the Pact's protocol, and the Alliance Council, having reviewed the evidence, had concluded that the Star Hunters were the clear aggressors in the conflict. After the formal agreement was signed, High Elder Vex approached Admiral Gray in a quiet corner of the chamber. "You could have destroyed us," Vex said bluntly. "Why didn't you?" Gray studied the alien leader for a moment before answering. "Destruction is easy. Creation is hard. Humans spent centuries perfecting destruction before we realized it was a dead end. We chose a different path. And that path includes hiding weapons as art." There was a hint of bitterness in Vex's voice. "Not hiding," Gray corrected. "Integrating. We didn't want to be defined by our weapons, so we made them part of something larger, something better. Our defense systems are beautiful because we wanted everything we create to be beautiful, even the tools we hope never to use." Vex seemed to contemplate this. "My people know only the glory of conquest. We have been warriors for thousands of years. What else could we be?" "That," Gray said quietly, "is for you to discover." A week later, Ambassador Reed addressed the full Galactic Alliance Council. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member world, all eager to hear Earth's explanation for the events that had transpired. "Honorable Council," Reed began, "Earth comes before you today to address concerns about our actions during the recent conflict. Some have accused us of deception for maintaining military capabilities while presenting ourselves as a peaceful society. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of our approach." She activated a holographic display showing images of Earth's transformed cities, where defensive systems had once again been concealed within beautiful architecture and art installations. Earth did not deceive the Alliance. We truly did embrace peace, art, and scientific advancement. We did reduce our military presence throughout the galaxy. What we did not do was abandon our responsibility to protect our people. The display shifted to show human colonies, where life was already returning to normal. Scientists resumed their research, artists returned to their creations, and children played in parks that had briefly served as defensive positions. The Star Hunters believed that our commitment to peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. They were wrong. We had not forgotten. We had evolved. We learned to integrate defense into our society without letting it dominate. We learned that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to protect what matters while preserving what is good. In the viewing gallery, Admiral Gray watched with approval. Beside him stood Captain Miller and Engineer Taylor, both now returned to their primary roles as explorer and artist, respectively. Their military uniforms had been replaced by civilian clothes, though the confidence and discipline of their training remained evident in their bearing. "Will it last?" Miller asked quietly. "The peace?" Gray considered the question. "It will if we work at it. The Star Hunters have been shown that aggression has consequences. The Alliance has been reminded that peace requires vigilance, and we have demonstrated that humanity can be both peaceful and strong." On the Star Hunter homeworld, High Elder Vex walked through a gallery where human art was being displayed for the first time. The pieces had been sent as a gesture of goodwill following the peace agreement. Many Star Hunters viewed the exhibit with confusion or disdain. Art was not valued in their warrior culture. But Vex found himself drawn to a large sculpture that dominated the central hall. It appeared to be an abstract representation of two hands, one open in offering, the other closed in a protective gesture around a small globe that resembled Earth. A plaque beside it bore a simple inscription: "The choice between creation and destruction defines who we are." Vex stood before the sculpture for a long time, contemplating its meaning. Finally, he turned to his aide. "Contact the human ambassador. I wish to discuss cultural exchange programs." 6 months after the conflict ended, President West stood, with Admiral Gray on the observation deck of the Remembrance, now orbiting Earth as a museum rather than a warship. Below them, the planet shimmered blue and green and white, peaceful once more. The defensive systems are being reintegrated into the city designs, West said. Most people will forget they're even there until they're needed again. Will they be needed again? Gray asked. West smiled slightly. I hope not, but hope is not a strategy. We maintain what we must, even as we build what we want. Gray nodded in understanding. The Star Hunters are changing, slowly, but changing. Their younger generation seems particularly interested in human culture and ideas. And the Alliance? They've proposed new transparency guidelines, Gray replied. But they've also recognized Earth's right to maintain defensive capabilities. I think they finally understand our philosophy. A young officer approached them, stopping respectfully at a distance until West beckoned him forward. Excuse me, Madam President Admiral, the officer said. The new cadets have arrived for the tour. Gray turned to face a group of young people, human and alien alike, who waited nearby. They were the first class of a new academy, established to train both military officers and peacekeepers together. Humans didn't forget how to fight, Gray told them as they gathered around. We just learned there are better ways to win, but when necessary, we remember. The young faces looked up at him with interest and respect, representatives of a new generation that might understand what the older ones had struggled to grasp. That true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to. Above them, Earth continued its peaceful orbit around the sun, its defenses once again hidden but never forgotten, a sleeping giant that had awakened once and would do so again if needed, but only if needed. And in that, balance lay humanity's greatest victory. The red sun rose over the barren landscape of what was once called North America. 200 years had passed since the invasion, since Earth fell to the mighty Vex Empire. What remained of humanity lived as slaves, working endless shifts in mines, factories, and fields to fuel the endless hunger of their alien overlords. Tom wiped sweat from his brow as he swung his pickaxe into the rock face. At 35, he was considered old among the workers. Few survived past 40 in the mineral extraction pits. His muscles ached with familiar pain as dust filled his lungs. The thin protective mask he wore did little to filter the toxic air. Move faster. The harsh voice of the overseer, a hulking Vex named Grunt, echoed through the cavern. His eyes glowed yellow in the dim light, scanning for any sign of weakness or rebellion. Commander Krell has increased the quota again. Anyone who fails to meet it gets no food for 3 days. Murmurs of despair spread among the workers. The quotas were already impossible. Many would starve in the coming weeks. Keep quiet and work, whispered Mark, Tom's closest friend. The guards are watching. Above them, hovering security drones recorded their every movement, equipped with stun weapons that could drop a human in seconds. Tom had seen the drones used too many times to count. When the work horn finally blared, Tom stumbled out of the mine with the others. The sky had darkened with storm clouds that never seemed to bring rain anymore. The earth was dying, just like its people. The workers shuffled toward the camp, rows of metal shacks where humans were packed 10 to a room. Water rations were distributed at the central square, a thin brownish liquid that barely quenched their thirst. Look, Mark nudged Tom, pointing toward the food distribution center. It's Ray. The old man sat on a crate surrounded by a small group of children. At nearly 70, Ray was among the oldest humans alive. His continued survival was something of a mystery. Some said the Vex kept him alive as a curiosity. Tom. And Mark moved closer to hear Ray's quiet voice. And so our ancestors built great ships, Ray was saying, his weathered hands moving through the air to mimic flight. Not all humans were captured when the Vex came. Some escaped to the stars, taking with them our knowledge, our history, our hope. They promised to return one day when they had found allies and built weapons strong enough to defeat our enemies. A Vex guard approached, its heavy footsteps clanking against the metal walkway. Disperse, humans, No gatherings without permission. The children scattered instantly, conditioned by fear. Ray slowly rose to his feet, nodding respectfully to the guard who sneered before moving on. Tom helped the old man back to his quarters. You shouldn't tell those stories, Ray. The young ones might actually believe them. Ray's eyes crinkled as he smiled. Who says they aren't true? 2 centuries, Ray. If humans escaped, they've forgotten us by now. Perhaps, but hope is the one thing the Vex cannot take from us unless we surrender it willingly. Tom shook his head. He'd given up hope long ago. Survival was the only goal now. Later that night, as Tom lay on his thin mattress listening to the snores of his bunkmates, he heard the distant rumble of Vex ships patrolling the sky. Something seemed different about the pattern of their movements. More ships than usual, flying faster, more agitated. You hear that? Mark whispered from the next bunk. Yeah. Something's got them worked up. There's talk in Section 6, Mark said, his voice barely audible. The communication towers picked up signals from deep space last week, signals the Vex couldn't identify. Tom rolled over to face his friend. How would anyone know that? The comm towers are heavily guarded. Ben's cousin works maintenance there. He overheard 2 commanders talking. Probably just another alien. Species for them to conquer, Tom replied. But something stirred inside him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. The next morning, Commander Krell himself visited the mines. His presence sent waves of fear through the workers. Standing 9 feet tall with gleaming black armor, Krell was responsible for this entire sector, and notorious for his cruelty. Attention, humans. His voice boomed through the amplifiers. Any unauthorized communication or gathering will be punished by immediate execution. Anyone found with communication devices will be executed along with their entire living unit. That afternoon, they witnessed the consequences of these new rules. A family of 4 was brought to the central square, accused of possessing a crude radio receiver. Tom and the others were forced to watch as all 4 were executed, their bodies left in the square as a warning. As the workers were returning to their quarters that evening, Tom noticed a new face among them, a woman with fierce eyes and short, brown hair. She moved with purpose, unlike the shuffling gait most workers adopted. When she passed Tom, she stumbled slightly, bumping into him. He felt something slip into his pocket. Sorry, she murmured before continuing on her way. Later, alone in a maintenance closet, Tom examined what she had given him, a small piece of paper with handwritten words. The stories are true. They're coming. Be ready. Find me tomorrow. Ellie. Tom's heart raced as he read the note again and again before destroying it as instructed. For the first time in decades, the impossible thought formed in his mind. What if Ray's stories weren't just legends? What if help was actually coming? That night, as Tom looked up at the stars through a crack in the ceiling, he allowed himself to feel something dangerous. Hope. The next morning, Tom awoke to strange atmospheric disturbances. The sky had taken on an unusual greenish tint, and the air felt charged with electricity. The Vex patrol ships moved frantically across the horizon, more numerous than he had ever seen before. Something big is happening, Mark whispered as they lined up for the morning work assignment. The guards are nervous. Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd for the woman from yesterday, Ellie. He spotted her in the far line, her stance alert despite the early hour. Their eyes met briefly before she looked away, giving the slightest nod toward the eastern mining tunnel. 3 hours later, Tom managed to slip away from his work detail, claiming he needed to retrieve a replacement drill bit. The eastern tunnel was rarely used anymore, its resources mostly depleted. He found Ellie waiting in a small alcove hidden from the security cameras. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said, her voice stronger than most pit workers. Your note said, the stories are true. What did you mean? Ellie glanced around before pulling something from her pocket, a small device unlike anything Tom had seen before. This is a receiver, not Vex technology, something else entirely. Tom stared at the sleek, metallic object. Who are you? You're not from the pits. I move between camps carrying messages. There's a network of us watching and waiting. She activated the device and it projected a small holographic display showing a series of dots moving across what looked like a map of their solar system. These signals started 3 weeks ago. They're getting closer. Closer to what? To Earth. Her eyes burned with intensity. The ships are coming, Tom. Just like in Ray's stories. Tom felt his chest tighten. That's impossible. Is it? The Vex are terrified. Why else would Krell himself come to oversee this backwater mining operation? Why the increased patrols? The executions? Before Tom could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A distant boom echoed through the tunnel. What was that? Tom asked. They're testing the planetary defense systems. They've been firing at something. Ellie pocketed the device. Listen carefully. When it happens, when they arrive, there will be chaos. The Vex will try to maintain control through fear. We need to be ready to fight back. Fight back? With what? Pickaxes against their weapons? We'll have help. Ellie handed him a small communicator. Keep this hidden. I'll contact you when it's time. Tom took the device, knowing the penalty for possessing it would be death. Why me? Because Ray trusts you, and we need people the workers will follow. When Tom returned to his work detail, he found the atmosphere tense. The overseers were shouting more than usual, pushing workers beyond their limits. By midday, 3 people had collapsed from exhaustion. 1 didn't get up again. That evening, Jack, one of the younger workers, was caught stealing extra water rations. The punishment was swift and brutal. Tom watched in horror as the guards beat Jack until he lay motionless on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Let this be a lesson, Grunt announced to the gathered workers. Order must be maintained, especially now. Tom helped carry Jack's broken body to the medical station, though they both knew there was little the overworked human doctor could do with her limited supplies. What did he mean by especially now? Tom asked the doctor as she tried to stop. Jack's bleeding. She looked around nervously before leaning closer. The Vex communication network has been disrupted since this morning. Something is interfering with their signals. That night, unusual lights danced across the sky. Too erratic to be Vex ships. The camp buzzed with whispers quickly silenced by the roaming guards. Tom lay awake, the hidden communicator pressing against his chest where he had sewn it into the lining of his jacket. Around midnight, the device vibrated. Tom slipped outside, using the cover of darkness to make his way to the camp perimeter. There he found Ellie with Ray and several others he didn't recognize. It's happening, Ellie said, her face illuminated by the strange lights above. The Vex have lost control of the orbital monitoring stations. Their communication network is down across 3 continents. How? Tom asked. Ray stepped forward, looking younger somehow, energized. Because they're here. Our people have returned. The patrol ships are being called back to the main bases, one of the strangers said. They're consolidating their forces. Ellie activated a larger version of the device she had shown Tom earlier. It displayed a global map with pulsing red dots, representing Vex strongholds. They're preparing for war. What can we possibly do to help? Tom asked. Organize, Ellie replied. When the fighting starts, the Vex will target population centers first. We need to get our people to safety, then arm those who can fight. Arm them with what? Ray smiled. They will bring us weapons. They have promised. The meeting was cut short by the wail of alarms. The group scattered as searchlights swept across the compound. The next morning, the workers were not sent to the mines. Instead, they were confined to their quarters, as heavily armed Vex troops established defensive positions throughout the camp. Through the window, Tom could see massive weapons being assembled, all pointing skyward. Mark slipped into Tom's quarters. You need to see this, he whispered, pulling Tom toward the small communications hub where the daily work orders were usually issued. Inside, the Vex communication screens flickered with static. Suddenly, the static cleared, and an image appeared, a human face wearing an unfamiliar uniform. The person spoke, the voice translated into multiple languages. People of Earth, This is Captain James of the Terran Alliance fleet. After 2 centuries we have returned. Hold fast. Liberation is coming. The message cut off abruptly as the Vex regained control of the system, but it was too late. The words had been heard throughout the camp. For the first time in generations, the enslaved people of Earth looked up at the sky not with despair, but with hope. Tom felt the communicator vibrate again. Ellie's voice came through, barely audible. "It begins tomorrow. Be ready." Dawn broke with an unnatural silence over the mining camp. The usual morning alarms didn't sound. The guards who typically roused workers from their bunks were nowhere to be seen. Tom peered through the dirty window of his quarters and saw Vex, troops rushing toward the eastern perimeter, their weapons primed. "It's happening," he whispered to Mark, who stood beside him. The ground suddenly trembled beneath their feet. A distant boom echoed across the landscape, followed by another and another. The vibrations grew stronger with each impact. "Those aren't bombs," Mark said. "They're landing." Tom pulled the communicator from his jacket. "Ellie, are you there?" Her voice came through, breathless. "Eastern Gate in 10 minutes. Bring anyone willing to fight." Tom turned to the dozen men and women crowded in his quarters. "This is it. The moment we've waited for. Anyone who wants to stay behind, I understand. Anyone who wants to fight, follow me." To his surprise, every person stepped forward. They slipped out of the building to find the camp in chaos. The few remaining Vex guards were focused on the eastern perimeter, where flashes of light indicated heavy weapon fire. The sky above had transformed into a battlefield. Massive ships like nothing Tom had ever seen engaged the smaller, insect-like Vex vessels. The alien ships were being systematically destroyed, falling from the sky in burning wrecks. "Those are human ships?" Mark asked in awe as they ran toward the eastern gate. "They must be," Tom replied, though the technology seemed far beyond anything from the stories. They reached the gathering point to find Ellie with nearly 100 other humans. She stood atop an overturned Vex transport, distributing unfamiliar weapons. "These were dropped by our allies," she explained, handing Tom a sleek rifle-like device. "Point and think. The weapon reads basic intentions." Tom gripped the weapon, feeling it warm to his touch. A heads-up display appeared in his vision, highlighting potential targets. "The main Vex command center is our primary objective," Ellie continued. "Ray has the layout. He worked there before being sent to the mines." The old storyteller stood nearby, no longer appearing frail. He wore what looked like body armor and carried a weapon similar to Tom's. "All those years telling stories," Ray said, noticing Tom's surprise. "I never mentioned I was part of the original resistance, did I? Before the Vex broke us." A massive explosion rocked the eastern wall of the compound. Through the smoke and debris, armored figures emerged, human in shape but taller, their movements fluid and powerful despite their bulky protection. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a man with weathered features and gray at his temples. "I'm Commander Alex of the Terran Alliance 1st Landing Division. Which of you is the contact?" Ellie stepped forward. "That would be me, sir." "Good work maintaining the network," Alex said. "Your intelligence has been invaluable." Tom stared, in disbelief. The returning humans spoke differently with an accent he couldn't place, but they were undeniably human. "How?" Tom began. "How did you find us after all this time?" Alex turned to him. "We never lost you. Earth has been monitored since the fall. We've been receiving transmissions from the underground network for decades. It took time to build what we needed to return." "Why so long?" someone asked bitterly. "Because we needed to ensure we wouldn't fail," Alex replied. "The Vex Empire spans hundreds of systems. We needed technology they couldn't counter and allies they couldn't defeat." He gestured to several non-human figures emerging behind him, tall, elegant beings with silvery skin. "The Iridians," Alex explained. "One of many species who've joined, our cause against the Vex. Now we have little time. The main Vex fleet is 8 hours from arrival. We need to secure this region before then." A tactical display appeared in the air between them, showing the mining compound and surrounding area. Red dots indicated Vex strongpoints. Commander Krell has barricaded himself in the central command building with hostages, Ellie reported. Alex nodded. Then that's our priority. We'll split into 3 teams. Tom found himself assigned to Alex's strike team, alongside Ellie, Ray, and Mark. They moved through the compound, encountering pockets of Vex resistance. The Terran weapons proved devastatingly effective, disintegrating alien armor as if it were paper. As they approached the command center, Tom spotted a familiar figure, Jack, the young worker who had been beaten nearly to death just days before. He was helping wounded humans to safety. How is he even walking? Tom asked in amazement. Terran medical technology, Ellie explained. They healed his injuries in minutes. The command center loomed before them, a towering structure of black metal. Vex defenders fired from fortified positions around its base. Cover me, Alex ordered before touching a device on his wrist. His armor shimmered, and suddenly he seemed to blur at the edges. Tom watched in awe as Alex moved through the Vex fire untouched, the energy blasts passing through him as if he weren't there. He reached the defenders and materialized fully among them, his weapon cutting them down before they could react. Phase shift technology, Ray explained, noting Tom's expression. Just one of many advancements we've made. With the outer defenses neutralized, they breached the command center. Inside, they fought their way through corridors filled with desperate Vex soldiers. Tom found that the weapon responded to his thoughts, with increasing accuracy as he grew accustomed to it. They reached the central chamber to find Commander Krell holding a human child as a shield. The massive Vex leader's 4 eyes blazed with hatred. One step closer and the young one dies, Krell hissed. Alex lowered his weapon. It's over, Krell. Your forces are defeated. The main fleet won't reach Earth in time to save you. Then I die with honor, taking human lives to the end. Krell's grip tightened on the terrified child. Tom felt his weapon grow warm, sensing his desire to save the child. A targeting solution appeared in his vision. A precise shot that would hit Krell without harming the hostage. Without hesitation, Tom fired. The energy blast struck Krell's upper shoulder, causing him to drop the child. Alex moved with blinding speed, pulling the child to safety as Ray and Ellie fired, bringing Krell to his knees. Impossible, the Vex commander gasped. Humans were broken, weak. Not anymore, Tom said, approaching the fallen alien. Outside, the sky filled with more descending ships, the second wave of the Terran Liberation Force. Through the command center's windows, Tom could see humans emerging from hiding places throughout the compound, looking up at their saviors with disbelief and growing joy. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Attention, all Earth residents. This is Admiral Wilson of the Terran Alliance Fleet. The Vex forces in your region have been defeated. For the first time in 2 centuries, you are free. Tom turned to Alex. What happens now? Now, the commander replied, we take back our home, all of it. In the 3 days since Commander Krell's capture, the mining camp had transformed. Terran Alliance ships hovered protectively overhead, while ground forces established a secure perimeter. Mobile medical units treated centuries of injuries and illnesses among the freed workers. For many, it was the first time they had ever received proper medical care. Tom stood at the edge of the former Vex compound, now serving as the Alliance's forward operating base. He watched as supply ships landed, bringing food, medicine, and equipment. His own body felt different, stronger and more energized after Terran medics had treated his lungs, damaged by years in the mines. There you are, Ellie called, jogging toward him. She wore a fitted Terran uniform now, the insignia marking her as part of their intelligence division. Commander Alex is looking for you. We're planning the assault on the regional capital. As they walked toward the command center, the same building where Krell had made his last stand, Tom noticed the changes in the people around him. Former slaves now walked with straight backs and raised heads. Some trained with Alliance soldiers, learning to use their advanced weapons. Others helped coordinate supply distribution or worked as guides for the liberation forces. It's amazing, Tom said. 3 days ago, we could barely look a Vex in the eye. Now people are preparing to fight them. Ellie smiled. Hope is a powerful thing, especially when backed by superior firepower. Inside the command center, Alex stood before a three-dimensional tactical display showing a city 40 miles to the west. The regional VEX headquarters where at least 20,000 humans were still held captive. Tom, good. Alex nodded as they entered. I want you on the advance team. You know the terrain better than my people, and the locals trust you. The display zoomed in on the city's eastern section. Our intelligence suggests the VEX are using human shields around key installations. We need to extract those civilians before the main assault begins. I'll do whatever I can to help, Tom replied, but I'm no soldier. You've proven otherwise, Alex said. That shot you made to save the child from Krell? One of my best snipers couldn't have done better. Ray entered the room, accompanied by one of the silver-skinned Iridian allies. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall with eyes that shifted colors like oil on water. This is Ambassador Lyra, Ray introduced. She's here to observe our progress. The Iridian's voice resonated with an unusual harmonic quality. The liberation of Earth holds great symbolic importance to the Alliance. Your world was the first to fall to the VEX, and it will be the first fully reclaimed. How many worlds have they conquered? Tom asked. 217 inhabited planets, Lyra answered. 46 species enslaved or driven to near extinction. The Terran Alliance has liberated 28 worlds so far, but Earth is the most heavily fortified. Alex expanded the tactical display to show the entire region. The VEX reinforcements are being held at bay by our fleet, but they'll eventually break through. We have perhaps 5 days before we face a major counterattack. Tom studied the display. What about these tunnels? They were built for mineral transport before I was born. Most VEX don't even know they exist. Alex zoomed in on the tunnel network. Could they support a covert insertion team? They could get us right under the main detention centers, Tom confirmed. Then that's our approach. Alex began adjusting the battle plan. Tom, you'll guide the infiltration team. Ellie will coordinate with the resistance cells inside the city. As the meeting concluded, Mark burst into the room. Tom, you need to see this. They followed him outside where a crowd had gathered around a newly landed Terran vessel. Unlike the military ships, this one had a sleek civilian design. Its ramp lowered, and a woman in formal attire descended, flanked by aides. Who's that? Tom asked. President Bell of the Terran Alliance, Ray answered, his voice filled with reverence. The leader of all human colonies. The crowd parted as President Bell approached the command center. Up close, Tom could see the determination in her eyes, along with something else, a deep sadness. Commander Alex, she acknowledged. Your progress is impressive. Thank you, Madam President. We didn't expect you to visit the front lines personally. This isn't just another front, she replied. This is Earth. She turned to the gathered former slaves. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, to see our people. Her gaze fell on Tom. You're the one who helped capture Krell? I just took a shot when I had it, Tom said uncomfortably. President Bell studied him for a moment. What's your name? Tom, ma'am. Tom what? He hesitated. Just Tom. Slaves aren't allowed family names. Something flashed in the president's eyes, anger quickly controlled. Well, just Tom, I would be honored if you would join us for the war. Council, we need people who know what it's truly been like here. The next morning, Tom found himself aboard a stealth insertion craft with 11 Terran Special Forces soldiers. His role was simple but crucial: guide them through the tunnels to the detention centers. As they prepared to depart, Alex handed Tom an official Alliance combat suit. This is rated for full battle conditions, Alex explained. The neural interface will enhance your reactions and provide tactical information. Tom slipped the suit on, feeling it adjust to his body. Information immediately flowed into his mind. Distance calculations, weapon status, team positions. It's overwhelming, he gasped. You'll adapt quickly, Alex assured him. The suit learns from you as much as you learn from it. The stealth craft lifted off, its advanced technology rendering it invisible to VEX sensors. It flew low over the scarred landscape toward the city. 2-minute warning, the pilot announced. Preparing for subterranean insertion. Tom studied the faces of the soldiers around him, men and women born among the stars, descendants of those who had escaped Earth generations ago. They looked both familiar and foreign, with a confidence he was only beginning to understand. "Why? Risk your lives for us?" he asked suddenly. "Your people escaped, you built new homes, new lives." The team leader, a woman named Lisa, looked at him steadily. "Because you're our people too. Earth isn't just where humans began. It's the heart of who we are. Even those of us born on distant worlds have Earth in our blood." She touched a patch on her shoulder, the old Earth symbol of a blue planet. "We never forgot. We never stopped planning to return. Everything we built, every alliance we formed, every technology we developed was for this moment. To come home and set our people free." The craft descended into an abandoned mining shaft, its lights illuminating the passage ahead. Tom felt the weight of history pressing down on him along with the stone above. 2 centuries of waiting, of suffering, of barely surviving, all leading to this moment. The craft touched down in the darkness. "Tunnel entrance is 50 meters ahead," Tom said, activating his suit's enhanced vision. "From there we can reach the main detention center undetected." Lisa nodded. "Lead the way." As Tom stepped out into the tunnel that would take them beneath the Vex stronghold, he felt something he hadn't experienced before. Not just hope, but certainty. For the first time, he truly believed humanity would win. The liberation of the regional capital became known as the Battle of New Dawn. It began in darkness, with Tom leading the infiltration team through forgotten tunnels beneath the Vex stronghold. "We're directly under the main detention center," Tom whispered, studying the holographic map projected from his combat suit. "There should be an access shaft about 20 meters ahead." The team moved silently, their suits adapting to the environment, nearly invisible in the dim light. When they reached the access point, Lisa placed a small device against the ceiling. It emitted a soft hum as it analyzed the structure above. 518 human life signs detected, she reported. No Vex guards inside the chamber itself. They monitor from external stations. "That matches what we know of their procedures," Tom confirmed. "They believe humans are too broken to resist, so they keep minimal direct supervision." Lisa nodded to her team. "Cut through here. Non-lethal suppressants only until all civilians are clear." The device sliced through the ceiling material, creating a perfect circle that the team lifted away. One by one, they ascended into a vast chamber filled with rows of sleeping platforms. Hundreds of emaciated humans lay in various states of consciousness, many too weak to even lift their heads. Seeing their condition, Tom felt rage burning inside him. "This was my fate too before I was sent to the mines," he whispered. The team moved quickly, waking the prisoners and explaining in hushed tones that rescue had come. Many couldn't comprehend what was happening. Some thought they were hallucinating. Others wept silently. "We need to move faster," Lisa urged as her tactical display updated. "Vex patrols are changing rotation in 5 minutes." They guided the prisoners toward the tunnel entrance, helping those too weak to walk. Tom found himself carrying an elderly man who couldn't stop thanking him, between labored breaths. "I never thought I'd live to see this day," the man wheezed. "My grandfather used to tell stories about the ones who escaped. No one believed him." "I didn't believe it either," Tom admitted, "until I saw their ships in the sky." The evacuation was nearly complete when the alarms sounded. Harsh red lights flooded the chamber as Vex voices barked orders through the announcement system. "They've discovered us," Lisa shouted. "Defensive positions! Tom, get the last civilians into the tunnel." The Special Forces team formed a perimeter as the first Vex guards burst through the main doors. The difference in combat effectiveness was immediately apparent. The returning humans moved with enhanced speed and precision, their weapons cutting through Vex armor with ease. Tom hurried the last group of prisoners toward the escape tunnel. As he turned to follow them, he spotted a familiar face among the Terran soldiers holding the perimeter. Mark, wearing a combat suit similar to his own. "What are you doing here?" Tom called out. Mark grinned as he fired at the incoming Vex troops. Couldn't let you have all the glory. Above them, the ceiling suddenly retracted, revealing the night sky. Terran dropships descended into the opening, their weapons targeting Vex reinforcements attempting to reach the detention center. The main assault has begun, Lisa announced. Everyone to the extraction points. Tom helped guide the freed prisoners aboard the dropships. As the last ship prepared to lift off, he saw Mark taking heavy fire at the perimeter. Without hesitation, Tom leaped from the ship, his combat suit enhancing his speed and strength. He reached Mark just as his friend took a hit to the leg. I've got you, Tom said, lifting Mark onto his shoulders. The dropship hovered, its ramp still lowered as Tom ran toward it, Vex energy blasts exploding around him. With one final leap enhanced by his suit, he cleared the distance and crashed onto the ramp as it closed. Cutting it close, the pilot commented as they soared into the sky. Through the viewport, Tom watched the battle unfold across the city. Terran ships engaged Vex defenses while ground forces pushed toward the central command tower. The night. Sky blazed with weapons fire and explosions. It's beautiful, Mark murmured as a medic treated his wound. Terrible, but beautiful. By dawn, the city had fallen to Alliance forces. Tom stood with Alex and President Bell on a platform overlooking the former Vex headquarters as the Alliance flag was raised. Reports are coming in from across the planet, Alex announced. Uprisings have begun on every continent. Our forces are moving to support them. President Bell turned to Tom. The Vex never understood humanity. They thought breaking our bodies would break our spirit. For a long time it did, Tom admitted. But not completely, she replied. Not forever. That's the essence of our species, Tom. We endure. We remember. We return. 1 week later, Tom stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship orbiting Earth. Below, the liberation continued. The Vex were in retreat across the globe, their once invincible empire crumbling before the combined might of the Terran Alliance and their alien allies. Ray joined him at the viewport, his fragile appearance now transformed after proper medical treatment. Not bad for an old storyteller, eh? Tom smiled. Your stories kept hope alive when we had nothing else. And now we have everything, Ray said, gesturing to the stars beyond Earth. The Alliance has invited all Earth humans to join them to learn, to train, to see the universe our ancestors have helped shape. I've accepted a position on President Bell's advisory council, Tom said. She wants people who remember what it was like under Vex rule. And I've been asked to record our history, Ray replied. All of it, the invasion, the occupation, the resistance, and now the liberation. Ellie entered the observation deck, now wearing the formal uniform of an Alliance officer. They're ready for you both in the command center. The President is making her announcement to the planet. Together, they walked through the gleaming corridors of the ship, a vessel built by humans who had never forgotten their origins, never abandoned their enslaved kin. In the command center, President Bell stood before a communication array broadcasting to every liberated region of Earth. Her voice carried across a planet hearing the unfiltered truth for the first time in 2 centuries. People of Earth, today marks 1 month since our return. The Vex occupation is crumbling. Their forces are in retreat not just here but across a dozen worlds as news of Earth's liberation spreads. What began here will echo throughout the galaxy. She continued, her words reaching billions. 200 years ago, our ancestors made a promise as they fled a dying Earth, that they would return. That promise passed through generations, shaping everything we built, every alliance we formed. Earth was never forgotten. You were never abandoned. Tom felt a strange mixture of emotions as he listened. Pride, grief for the suffering of his people, and boundless hope for the future. The road ahead will not be easy, President Bell concluded. Rebuilding what was lost will take time. Earth bears deep scars, in its land, in its people, in its very soul. But humanity has always defined itself not by its falls, but by its rise from them. As the broadcast ended, Tom gazed once more at the planet below. For the first time in his life, he saw not a prison but a home, not a place of suffering but of possibility. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Ray placed a hand on his shoulder, his eyes filled with wonder and determination. "Now, my friend, we truly begin. Earth is free, and humanity, all of humanity, can finally write its own story again. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.